Welcome to ENCA.com's Google Hangout. It's the 4th day of the Oscar Pistorius trial, and joining me once again are ENCA.com reporters Dianne Hawker and Lenyaro Sello. Lenyaro, we'll start with you. The media was in the spotlight this morning when someone in court used a flashlight. Tell us about the judge's reaction.
Well, Sashni, the judge said that this issue will be investigated. She said that in court. But I also spoke to NPA's Nathi Ngube outside of court, who reminded the media that, you know, in this case, when the media was allowed to broadcast this case live, it was said there were certain conditions that were set. And most importantly, it was said that the judge can at any point revoke the rights to broadcast this trial. So Nathi reminded the media to work together with the court, to work together with the judge, because if the judge feels like the media is interrupting court proceedings, the rights to broadcast can be revoked at any time.
And then today I understand that you got an opportunity to speak to members of the public in the public gallery. What were some of the thoughts that came from that?
Well, I spoke to an attorney, Donald Selamulela, who's attending the trial. He says he'll be attending the trial for the next few days, up until next week. He described Oscar Pistorius as a role model and actually calls him the sportsman of the century. And he says, you know, this is of great interest to the public, to himself, because he's very interested in criminal litigation. And he says that, you know, Oscar Pistorius is a unique person, hence this case is one of its kind. He also says that, you know, the case will reflect on the morality and ethics of our justice system. And, you know, watching it on TV, reading about it in the newspaper, in the media is not enough. You actually have to be here. And, you know, that's kind of the feeling here from members of the public. And what the NPA has said is that, you know, there's no accreditation as such. You know, only about 20 members of the public are allowed in the court. And it's on a first-come, first-served basis. So whoever gets here first in the morning can get into court.
There's been a lot of attention that's kind of shifted to, you know, how this case puts South African law and ethics in the spotlight. Did you get a sense of this from the people you spoke to?
Yes, actually, you know.
Dianne?
Yes, Sash, I'm here. It seems that we might have lost Len. I was inside court today. Do you want me to tell you a bit about what happened?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was a day filled with dramatic testimony. We heard chilling details of the extent of Reva's injuries that were, you know, laid bare in court. And you could see from Oscar's reaction that he was quite traumatized and got quite emotional. You know, when he heard this evidence, you could see him with his head down. At one point, he was actually blocking his ears, you know, to like block out the testimony.
Yes, that's correct, Sash. I mean, from where I'm sitting, you can't really see Oscar Pistorius' face, but what you do see is initially when the testimony started today, he was sitting quite upright. He was making notes. At times he was passing notes to his lawyers. But when the graphic testimony started, that's when he sort of started hunching over, you know, putting his face below the level of the stand, looking at his feet. And I understand that people who are watching this on TV could actually see that he was crying. At lunchtime today, he didn't go out for lunch as he usually does. He sat in the court with one of his lawyers, and they were discussing and making notes. And at one point, he came back to the dock to get his bag, and I noticed that he had a wad of tissues in his hand. You know, they were crumpled up as if he'd been holding them quite tightly in his hand. So, I mean, he actually, at the end of the day, looked quite emotionally drained. And his sister, Amy, gave him a hug and rubbed him on the back. His aunt, Lois, and his uncle, Arnold, also stayed in court for a little while after the proceedings had adjourned, you know, giving him a hug, and seemingly also giving him some words of encouragement.
Tell us about Johan Strip's testimony today. He's also a resident at the estate where Oscar lives.
Yes, that's correct, Sash. Johan Strip, he was one of the first people to arrive on scene. He lives in a house not too far from where Oscar lives, and he described how he was woken up by what he thought was gunshots, ran to his balcony to listen to what it could possibly be, and that's when he heard screams. He also described those screams as a woman's screams. He then says after that, while he contacted, tried to contact the police, and then heard another set of loud sounds, which he also thought was gunshots. He then went over to the Pistorius home to see whether he could help. He is a doctor, and so wanted to offer his services. When he got there, he described how he found Reva's body. Well, Oscar and Reva, who at that time was already deceased, at the bottom of the staircase. Oscar was trying to help her. He described how he was, trying to prop her up and open up her airway with one of his fingers, and how Oscar was praying, saying, God, please don't let her die. And even, in a way, bargaining with God, saying that if she lives, he'll dedicate his life to God. So very, very intense testimony today. I think the us in the public gallery, it was quite shocking, because this is the first neighbor that we've heard who was actually in the house and actually saw what the situation was like. He was asked what Oscar's emotional state was, and this was a question from the defense, Barry Rue, and he says that he looked very, very upset, and he made the point that it seemed as if Oscar was sincere at that time.
There was some cross-examination by Barry Rue, and pictures were shown to court about where Strip's house was and how far you could see into the bathroom where the shooting took place, windows. Can you just tell us a bit more about that, Dianne?
Yes, that's correct, Sash. What we were able to see on the monitors in court, you could see sort of the edge of Strip's bed on the end where he has his headboard, and just across from that is a window, his bedroom window. Through that bedroom window and balcony beyond it, you could see a sort of a small square dot that was, where Oscar's bathroom window is. He says that from a second balcony, which is attached to his bedroom, you can actually get a much clearer view of the bathroom window. And part of his evidence was that when he woke up and looked from the balcony, through the bathroom window, what he could see was that the light was on. Then he later explained that there actually is more than one bathroom window, and that through one of the windows he could see the light was on, but not through another. I understand that this will also go towards be part of the state's case. What was the situation in the house, whether it really was that there was any kind of argument. If Oscar had seen an intruder, why would the light have been on? Those are the kind of arguments that we'll ultimately expect to come out as a result of his testimony today.
Barry Rue also talked about the cognitive damage, especially with the head trauma that Reva had sustained, and he was putting that into context in terms of the screams and when she would have been able to scream and when the screaming would have just stopped. Talk us through that, Dianne.
The issue of the screams and when they could have happened, this is the second time that Barry Rue has made reference to Reva Steenkamp and the extent of her injuries. What he's basically saying is that one of the shots that was fired, and I believe the shot that ultimately killed her, would have fatally wounded her and she would not have been able to scream. Excuse me. If Reva Steenkamp was killed by the first set of sounds, as a result of the first set of gunshots or sounds that was heard, then she wouldn't have been able to scream afterwards. And what Strip told the court was that he heard, bang, 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 which was the first set of sounds. He then heard screams, and then again he heard bang, bang, bang. What the state has now come out and said is that their argument is that Reva Steenkamp died at 3:17 a.m. And if the second set of bang, bang, bang sounds was at 3:17 a.m., that would have been when she died. The state has not clarified what they believe the first set of sounds could have been. So we'll still have to hear, what they believe the two different sounds were. Was it a cricket bat or not? The defense is making it quite clear that they believe there was a shooting, Oscar screamed, and then the second set of sounds, which also sounded as if it was a gunshot, was Oscar trying to bang down the bathroom door using a cricket bat. And they're saying that there's no real way to tell the difference between those two sounds. Obviously, the state's case it will unfold over time. These cases take a lot of time, and often you get bits and pieces of the puzzle as you go along. But by the end of the state's case, they will have had to have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt what happened and what the time frame was.
Len, I see you back to join us. I just wanted to ask you, is Len still there, Len? It seems we've lost Len again. So Dianne, we're on to the 5th day tomorrow. What can we expect?
It seems like we will see step back on the stand tomorrow. Barry Rue has been going quite meticulously through the evidence given by all the witnesses. So he's unlikely to sort of end off with this critical testimony. This is the first testimony that we've heard of what happened inside the house. Before he sort of had every single question answered. Today, for the first time, we saw quite a I would say fiery exchange between Barry Rue and Harry Nell from the prosecution. Rue saying that Nell needs to explain what the state's case is, because there was a point where it was unclear what was being said about those gunshots and when they happened. And that's when Nell said, what the state is saying is that the sounds of 3:17 a.m. were the gunshots. And that is when Reeva Steenkamp died. So, obviously the defense will have to prove its timeline. They allude to different experts that they will be bringing. Today, Barry Rue said they've got their own medical experts who are going to testify. They've also said that they've done, testing on decibels and what can be heard and from what distance. So they really are intending to pick through every little piece of evidence that there is in this case. Back to you, Sash.
Dianne, it couldn't have been easy for Reeva's family, who was sitting in court, to hear all these detailed explanations of the injuries.
I imagine it would have been very difficult for them to take this in. Unfortunately, from where I'm sitting in court, I don't have a very clear view of Reeva's family, so I wasn't able to see their facial expressions. But what will happen is that we will be hearing a lot more of this kind of testimony. The state is going to have the police officers who were on scene, and they are also likely to also have a lot of expert testimony based on the injuries themselves. So there are going to be points in this case where the day will just be extremely brutal, particularly for the family members here in court. And we've seen Oscar Pistorius react to this. I'm sure that the Steenkamp family will also, and has also, found it difficult to deal with this evidence.
It's unfortunate that we lost Len during this hangout, but Dianne, thanks again for your insights on the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sash.